Good day, good night, all. Welcome back, CFR Network, CFR News. And I have a returning guest, well overdue, well overdue, Andrew. Prolific writer, researcher, family man, someone looking to seek knowledge and potentially make some inroads to open doors for other people so they can live a little bit more freer rather than encaged in this digital prison that we're currently in. Andrew Johnson, welcome back to the broadcaster. How art thou?
I'm very well, and thank you for inviting me back to your podcast.
You're most welcome. I thoroughly enjoy having conversations with you because you come from so many different points, reference points, and you have a wealth of knowledge. And also, you also think of things a little bit different, as many people do. But it's always interesting having these conversations. I thought we would have a little bit of a catch up of sorts. I
Mm,
mean, there's been so much stuff that's been happening, personally and throughout this whole plane of existence. Um, let's mainly sort of stick to I guess the last year, I guess, because
mm,
every single hour or so, we've got another five headlines. It is so hard to keep up
mm,
with geopolitical news, the planet, quote unquote, global warming and the climate crises, the wars, the
mm,
terror, the destruction. There's just so much stuff happening. And I
mm,
think as some of us know, this is a controlled plan to keep us in a total state of fear.
mm. I agree. I agree totally. And I think for me personally, I've really kind of withdrawn from a lot of the sort of anything that puts headlines at me. I have kind of uh, actively avoid. For example, a lot of people have the radio on, whether that's BBC or whether that's independent networks or just music stations. Might be something that doesn't have a lot of news, or it might be some stream. Um, but I've managed to find some free radio streams that are just music, and they don't even have commercials because
Wow.
even like for example, during COVID, everything was invaded with COVID. Even the commercials were invaded
Yes.
with COVID. So I avoid all of that, and I don't go on Twitter very much. I'm not on Instagram. I've never used Instagram. I do use Facebook a lot, but there's not as much news posting on there. You do get sort of,
The occasional.
spammy sponsored stuff and that, and there is a lot of diversion going on Facebook. But in the main, I avoid. So like, when was it? I didn't even know that Trump had won the election until about 2 days after it actually won. In fact,
Wow.
I didn't know I didn't think he would even win. I didn't follow it at all. So that's just an example of how much I've withdrawn, and I just kind of get on with my own life and
Yes.
and sort of do the things that I'm interested in. And I just watch a lot of YouTube videos, and I've got filters so I don't get the ads. My player downstairs that I have that I watch YouTube's on, it blocks all the ads,
Wow.
and I literally just tap on the videos I want to watch, and that cuts everything else out.
Consume, consume, consume at your own
Yeah.
leisure. Let me ask you a question then. So,
Mm.
music-wise, what internet station, radio station of sorts have you sort of hooked onto then, and what
Well,
genres are we listening to?
there's about 7 or 8 different streams that I found that don't have any news or commercials, and
Hmm.
one of them it's a Dutch network called Radio 10, I think it is, and there's a 60 stream, a 70 stream, an 80s and a 90 stream, and you can click
Excellent.
on those, and literally you get a station ID every sort of 10 minutes, which is like 2 seconds long. You might get a commercial when you start the stream, and sometimes these are in Dutch or German, so
Ah.
I can't understand them anyway. But they're
Hmm.
literally only like a minute long, and then you just got to clear on, and it's I just leave it on all day, and you
Let
don't
it.
get any, there's no news, there's nothing, and there's another one which is a Costa del Mar chill out. That's all free. You get an ad at the beginning of that, and that's got some really pleasant tunes on there. The Costa del Mar has a dance stream,
Okay.
a chill stream, a sax stream,
Mm.
and a Zen stream as well. And the Zen stream is quite pleasant just to have a relaxing sort of tones on in the background.
Tones,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
So those are quite. I came across those just through an app, then the app itself on a phone that started delivering ads. So I deleted the app, worked reverse engineered how it found the streams, which is dead easy, and then just went direct to the streams and bypassed the app completely. So I don't get any crud from that now. So,
With your
you know,
technical mind, excellent.
but
I
I think what I'd like to say as well, I just thought recently how we've got all the censorship as we discussed before recording. We've got, all the influences on these things, but it's perfectly possible now. For example, if you go onto YouTube and you have got an ad block, you can install an ad block extension. For example, you can just watch. You don't have to watch, Richard D. Hall or me or David Icke or Alex Jones. You can just watch videos about train sets,
yeah.
or you can watch videos about I don't know, stamp collecting or whatever it is that you're interested in,
Mm,
And I watch a lot of tech videos about, MacBooks, Macs. I haven't got even
okay.
got a Mac. I watched a lot of retro computing videos about old computers, because I started with a computer when I was 16, and I had a PlayStation years
Amstrads,
ago.
the Commodore
Yeah,
64s.
all that stuff, And there's another channel called TechMoan, and he makes all these interesting videos about old CD players and and I'm just a nerd for that sort of thing,
Yes.
and most people would be totally bored by it, frankly. But what my point is in mentioning that is that I'm not getting this propaganda put into me because
Mm,
this Techmoan guy, he just talks about CD players. He's not bothered about anything else. He doesn't talk about Trump. He doesn't talk about Bilderbergers or anything.
yeah.
So anything like that. So you're just getting that content, and you're not getting, anybody that does similar to me. They're not getting that propaganda input. You're just shielded from it, and so that in of itself, I think, is kind of like a change agent, if you see what I mean. People
Oh,
are just
yes.
they're not following the news anymore. That's why the BBC, for example, has become so utterly desperate to sell itself. You
Indeed.
know, if you, on the few occasions that I end up uh, clicking on a BBC thing, I haven't got a TV license anymore. I mean, my wife used to watch it, but not
Yes.
anymore. I don't have a TV license here, and I avoid all the BBC content.
Oh,
So
definitely. And if you're not utilizing the watching of live television, there is an option for you to tick to say, I
that's
do not
right.
participate in this, so I do not want to subsidize the British Broadcasting Corporation any longer.
That's right. And I have a tiny story to tell about that because my daughter, her house, she started watching iPlayer, and they ended up getting a letter saying, "Oh, we noticed you're watching iPlayer and you need a TV license to watch iPlayer." So, gentle listeners, be aware that the BBC is now using a third-party company to track who is using iPlayer and matching that to a postal address. So that's a new development in the last couple of years. Now,
Wow.
I haven't had a letter because, well, frankly, I haven't watched iPlayer. But now that's given me a good excuse to avoid
Mm,
it.
indeed. Indeed.
So
Do you think a VPN would work?
I'm not sure because I think I've never tried it. I don't use a VPN myself. I know a lot of people do.
Mm,
I think iPlayer is pretty savvy with that sort of thing, so
I
it
can
may
imagine.
block you. I
Yeah.
think the best way to do it would be, for example, I have a mobile phone, and like everyone does, and you could use mobile data to watch iPlayer if you've got a sufficiently big allowance,
Ah, good
because I don't,
point.
because certainly the mobile provider that I use, it's called Labara, and it's dead cheap. I've not, they haven't got my postal address. I know that they've just got an email address.
Email, that's a good point. But for
So
someone who's on a pay-as-you-go well, not even pay-as-you-go, on a contracted phone, that
yeah,
that mobile IP will be situated to that address, wouldn't it?
potentially there's potential for you to be tracked, but
Yeah,
I know that this one doesn't. I only have a small data allowance, so I wouldn't. I'd really only use it if I really, really wanted to watch
desperate.
something on
Yeah.
iPlayer. And being honest, if I really did want to watch something, I'd just go to my daughter's house. So
There
there you
isn't
go.
much there isn't much on that on the old beeve, as they call it.
No,
It's sad. I mean, I'm
it
younger
is.
than yourself. Growing up, 80s, 90s,
Mm,
having four channels, and then the
mm,
marvelous Channel 5 came out, and it was
mm,
revolutionary for the first 2 weeks. No ad
yeah.
breaks, no ad breaks, but that surely did change.
Mm, mm.
Um,
No,
Sky, BSB. Was it what was the
B
old
Sky B, wasn't it?
B Sky B?
There was
That was
that's what
it.
it became. It was called Sky, and then there was something else before B Sky B, wasn't there,
Yes,
as
there was
well, which
the
they merged
competitor.
with. And I can't remember
Yes.
what they called that. But yeah, there's been a lot of changes in broadcasting. And of course, now they're moving away from broadcast to internet delivered content because of course it
Exactly.
can all be tracked and they get
Yeah,
all their viewer numbers automatically,
indeed.
and all of that stuff. So that they really want that's the model they want to move towards and move away from broadcast
And I think the alternative media has done a splendid job. It's been
in general.
slow. Yeah, it's been slow, but based upon our work, and the people before us who have been, from the 60s all the way up, way writing books and producing documentaries, we have slowly, the masses, the 85% have realized that this quote unquote legacy dinosaur lame
Mm,
shame stream media, it's not for us. We have now
mm,
access to a wonderful technology called the internet, which has grown tremendously from when it first came out in the mid 90s.
absolutely. And
It's
that's what I'm saying, really. You've got a lot of peer to what I might term peer-to-peer media.
mm,
You just got guys like you, guys like me, generating their own content. Another video I watched the other day, which kind of highlights this whole scenario, really, and I think we should kind of refocus on this a little bit. I was watching a video about old camera technology, and it was about how outside broadcasts evolved, and they were talking about filming horse racing, right?
mhm.
And what they did originally, they had a big van, and they had a camera on top of the van, a really heavy camera. This was in the sort of 50s and early 60s, and they were trying to sort of drive across this field and track the horses racing.
Yes,
Whatever you think of the ethics of horse racing, by the way, that's a separate
a
question.
separate yes.
But and it said, oh, then they got a Citroen car, and yeah, then they got another car, and then the Citroen car was really good because it had this hydroelastic suspension,
Mm,
and they could put the camera. But then, of course, they had to have a generator on the back because the camera used so much power. They had to tow a flipping diesel generator, and that would
wow.
frighten the horses. So that got me thinking. Having watched that, I mean, it's a fascinating little 10-minute video made by some video camera nerd. But
Mm,
thinking of the whole concept of an outside broadcast unit, for example, which of course I think I remember watching Blue Peter, and they would
exactly.
explain how it all worked, back in the
Yes,
70s and 80s. But now, what's an outside broadcast unit? It's a mobile phone. So,
indeed.
so you and I, we have you've got HD and 4K video in your
Yeah.
pocket,
Hmm.
and you can plug in a Bluetooth microphone or something. And
Yes.
of course, people were doing this during COVID, weren't they? And just going out on the streets with a decent quality phone or a decent
Oh,
quality
yes.
handheld camera.
That's where we had the rise of the auditors, Andrew,
Right, right,
during the
yeah.
COVID period. Many people were making so much money utilizing the photography is not a crime, PNAC, which
Yeah,
raised so much awareness. Because again, if you had the
right.
conversation with someone, Andrew, and said, "Oh, if you was at work, you work,
Yeah.
at a reception, and someone came in with a camera and they were waving it around and stuff, would you challenge them? Would you tell them they can't
Mm,
record you?" And the majority of the people, strangely enough, Andrew, they would say, "Yeah, you can't record me. You got to get my
yeah,
permission." If you're in a general area,
yeah,
public spaces,
yeah, yeah,
you give up
yeah.
anonymity. And then also, we're in England, the UK, which has the most CCTV cameras anywhere. You're recorded from when you leave your doorstep. Your
Exactly,
vehicle is
exactly.
recorded. It's, yeah.
So so there's two sides to it, like you say. You can see it as an invasion of privacy that all these Amazon Ring, doorbells are
Mm,
recording you, and that's going on to Amazon cloud servers. Yeah, there's that one. That's one side of this. But the other side of it is that we can record a video, an interview with somebody, or and we just do it off our own bats. We have
yes,
our own personal agenda,
exactly.
whatever that might be, and we're not in the pay of the bankers or these elites that run everything with these dark agendas, which we started to find out more and more about. And then on again, just going back to the BBC for a moment, I didn't really hear much about the Hugh Edwards
Oh
scandal. And again,
gosh.
I ended up watching a video, and I couldn't believe it because this video is by the Sun newspaper, and they were kind of like saying that I think they were one of the first to break the Hugh Edwards story, or they were the first to print his name. So the BBC and then the Sun got into this war, and I
Yes.
just thought this sort of thing never used to happen, where you have
No.
one media corporation fighting another,
Mm.
you know, and so this is all signs of the death throes. I think, as you kind of, I know you didn't use that expression, but you were kind of calling them legacy media and all that.
Yeah.
They're being consumed by their own lies now, and that
Yes.
process, I think, uh, began a good few years ago now. But it's just now they're getting more and more desperate. You know,
Very much so.
and things like the Prince Andrew thing, the Jimmy Savile, all of these have come one after another. You know, and then what we were going to talk about as well is Richard D. Hall's case, which what Richard D. Hall has done prior to this case against him regarding the Manchester people, um, was very, very damaging to the BBC and the state.
Oh,
His
yes.
investigations, you know, and the people that are listening that haven't checked out Richard's videos, please go and check out his Odyssey channel, and his website is still up, by the way.
Yeah.
There's only certain videos have been taken down. The Madeleine McCann investigation, the Jill Dando investigation,
Yes.
the Joe Cox investigation.
Mm.
Um, if you look at particularly those three, if you haven't already, you I think will see even more reasons why they've gone after Richard D.
Oh,
Hall.
yeah.
Yeah,
Especially the Jill Dando. Well, all of them that you've mentioned,
yeah,
but the Jill
yeah,
Dando, all of those ones where these suspicious males just and there's
yeah,
so much to unpack in regards to the detail and the level of information that was left out. And then
mm,
the 85%, the people who, acquiesce to authority and acquiesce to the news because why would Andrew Noble? It's the news. Why would they lie to us? They're reporting what
yeah,
happens. They've got no agenda apart from telling us the news. No. As we're highlighting, they are here to represent the information in a manner
yeah.
which suits their agenda.
That's right. And it's fair enough for people to ask, well, why would they have an agenda over the assassination of Jill Dando? Why would they have an agenda in relation to the Madeleine McCann case?
Mm.
Those are legitimate questions that people should be asking. But I think this is something you and I come across in general conversations. Why would they make up this story about the World Trade Center being attacked by Osama bin Laden? Why can't that? Why would you worry about that not being true? People have no conception. Some people have no conception.
None.
A few poor, so people jump to the motive.
Yeah.
That's the problem with this, that they jump to the motive and they bypass the evidence. So, again, it's very difficult to, because of the way that mainstream media is geared and how the way that people are generally trained to think,
Hmm.
you tend to think of motives before you actually observe what's
Yes.
actually going on.
Hmm.
So, an observation is a skill which isn't really taught. We hear about developing critical thinking skills,
Hmm.
which is good, and you do need those. But to apply those critical thinking skills, uh, appropriately, you need to be applying those critical thinking skills using evidence and observations as a basis, not just in terms of thinking what motives might be. Because obviously
Indeed.
you can critically think about motives, but you must also critically think about what evidence has been presented and what evidence has been massaged, has
Yes.
been censored, and has been distracted from. And I think that's, if you've got a camera controlled by the BBC and it's pointed in a certain direction,
Hmm.
then you only see that evidence
Of
that that camera
course.
is pointing at.
Of
Whereas
course.
now, if you've got 50 mobile phones at a scene pointing at all these other different things in that room, in that building, in that street, that's when you get the evidence coming out. And again, that's a case in point with Manchester, with Richard's investigation into that, and with 9/11, for example. We had all these other cameras.
I
You
know.
know, it's in terms of 9/11, there were thousands of cameras.
Yes.
With Manchester, there's maybe like, I don't know, 10 or 15 or something that have captured significant stuff that's become public. You know, so this is really what people need to be thinking about is the actual evidence. And how that's been marginalized or suppressed, and things like that.
I'm totally left out. I love that the bulk
Mm.
of the evidence was just omitted.
Yeah, Yeah,
totally. Background stories, history, fathers, who father was connected to, the times of the transportation. That it's yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think, obviously we did want to talk a bit more about Richard's case, which I'm happy to do. Um, and I think what I would say is that w- Richard has to be very, very careful about, how he discusses the case, because he's got an injunction put upon
indeed.
him now.
Yes.
So there's certain things he can't really say without potentially being put in prison, and that's the severity of it. And he explained to me that um, there was a case a few years ago where, and I don't know the details. And the details aren't particularly important, but there was a lady who had been investigating some paedophile networks, and I think she'd made various accusations against somebody being a member of a paedophile ring or a gang or something.
Hmm.
And then this person, I think, again, sued her for damages or something, or for libel, or it might have even been harassment, like in Richard's case. I don't know. Maybe she was harassing them in the street and waving banners around in front of their face or something. I don't know exactly the details of this particular case. But anyway, so she was taken to court. She lost the case. She was ordered to pay damages, which I don't know if she paid. Well, she must have paid them, I think. But and then an injunction was put upon her to say she couldn't make these allegations in public again, um, and she couldn't talk about it. But what she did was, on her Twitter feed or X feed or whatever it's called these days, somebody else had made a video about her case, which she didn't make it. She didn't ask this person to make it. You know, she just somebody had made this video. She became aware of it, and she posted a link to that video on her
Oh my.
X feed, and she got 5 years in prison.
What?
Yep, 5 years in prison because that was the terms of the injunction. She broke the injunction, so what had been a civil case then became a criminal offence
Criminal.
because she'd broken this injunction.
Oh my.
And so that's Richard's biggest difficulty. And obviously he's got counsel, he's got people that know about all of this,
Yes.
advising him and stuff. Um, So, he did do another video though. I don't know if you saw that. He only posted that, I think, less than a week ago. I think it came
No,
out.
I've missed
Yeah,
that. Off
yeah,
once we
yeah. So
finish,
yeah,
I'll definitely check that out.
yeah, and he's done like an hour long video. It's not about. He mentions what I've just told you basically, but not in quite as much detail as I've just told you. But he's got a
Okay.
lot of other stuff in there, and he's going through like the current state of the world with the technocracy
Yes.
and the climate change scam and all of that. And he points out how it's all geared to keep people in a state of fear and keep them in a state of ignorance, and ensure that certain topics are not sort of focused on, and people are kept away from such things. And he goes through all of that, and the control of money, and things like that.
I see it now. I'm on the website now. It's
Yeah,
the Rich Planet TV show and it's 313 Global Technocracy.
yeah, that's the one. And I
Excellent.
think he's got two parts to it. I think he does like a 10-minute summary at the beginning of what I just told you, and
Yes.
other bits and bobs which he has, he is able to say, um, and then he goes on to the sort of wider picture. So, he says in the video basically, he got the judgment, he's been ordered to pay these damages. He talks a bit about that, and then he just says, well, I'm now going to appeal. So now I've got that all out of the way. I've got the appeals in. I'm going to appeal it. So I'm now at a point where I can refocus a little bit, and here's the video that I've done in relation to that, because he basically says he hasn't made a non-Manchester related video for 2 years.
Oh yeah.
He's kind of trying to get back to something that's not that, and move forward with that a bit. So
It's
uh,
been a while. It's been a while since I mean, there were some reposts that he did. He did the
mm,
the Boston Marathon. He reposted a video about that. The Dr. Shiva.
yeah,
About the swarm and
yeah,
all that. So it's good that he's getting back to creating some content and stuff, and
absolutely.
now he can refocus and channel that energy in this appeal. I mean, my only question is and worry is with the appeal again that will need to be defended. So
Right. There's more costs involved. Yeah, yeah.
yes,
He's told me a little bit more about that. I mean, I won't talk about it here. You just take what he says in the video. But there is still hope, and as I've said in some of the updates I've done in my videos, um, he was down, but he's not out. He's definitely not out.
Oh no.
And I think, what I think has surprised the establishment is that they just thought they'd lump him with these damages and he'd go away. They didn't expect that he would have the level of support that he's had. And if you look at the documents, and for example, if you read, another thing I wanted to mention in relation to Richard's case is the work of Dr. David A. Hughes, who was formerly of Lincoln University. I know David, I've met him a few times, and he and I have corresponded. And David A. Hughes has a Substack, and which is, I think, is dahughes.substack.com, and he's written a 12-part series of articles about Richard's case and all the shenanigans,
Yeah.
that have come out as a result of the court case, because the hearing transcript it's a public document. You can get copies of it.
Ah.
So all of it's in there. I have a copy of that document, and it's essentially a public document, although the ruling said that Richard had to take it off his website. But that's
Which is
it's
odd to say the
yeah, it's
least.
still in the court system. It's a public document, so yeah, exactly. It's odd that they would ask him to take it off. But anyway, so David A. Hughes is Substack, and of course Ian Davis, who's been a big supporter.
Oh
The, the
yes, Ian
joke,
Davis, yes.
yeah, yeah. So the joke of it is that Richard published this book. They've essentially censored it or sanctioned him. Said that he must take this down or something. I don't know if it actually says that, but of course, because it mentions these people who were involved,
Yeah.
I think he's decided to take it down for the best, uh, you know, to be safe, sort of thing. But
Safe, yeah.
Ian Davis, he's just published a book saying exactly the same sorts of things, and that came out on the day of the judgment
Wow.
on the 22nd of July. So
Synchronistic.
yeah, well, they of course Ian Davis had agreed that with Richard before all the court case that there was something very fishy about what went on. He did his own research and he came to the same conclusions. So but he did it without going to the street where these people live,
Yes, he
and
did it
putting the
from a.
camera in the van,
Well, that's a part
So he can't be
which.
prosecuted for that.
Yes, yes. I mean, some people have challenged my because I think that's going a bit too far. When I saw that, I thought that's a bit much, but I understand journalists and
Yeah. Oh,
do
yeah,
these
that's
kind of
that's
things.
right. And I think because people think these people are victims, and so forth. And clearly, Eve Hibbert is disabled. You can think that's you can think whatever you want of that.
Indeed.
But what people might not realise is that when uh, the the hit pieces were done against Richard by the BBC
Yeah.
and Mariana Spring,
Yes.
went to his stall in Merthyr Tydfil and put a microphone in front of his face when he'd said he didn't want to be involved in the
Numerous times,
documentary.
Andrew.
Right, exactly, and that was all documented on his website. Um, what then happened after those hit pieces had come out is the Daily Mail, I think it was, or possibly the Daily Express, they actually found out where Richard's parents lived,
What?
and they went up to the Newcastle area. I forget exactly where his parents lived, not that it matters, but it was somewhere in Geordieland, and
In the
his
Northeast.
parents, yeah, his parents were dead, you know, and so they went to his street and they knocked on neighbours' doors asking them what they knew of Richard's parents and what they thought of Richard.
My God,
Yeah.
that
Oh
is
yeah. Yeah.
ridiculous.
Which is exactly the same as what Richard did. Well, in fact, it's not. It's probably less. What Richard did is less severe than that. And he went and knocked on a few doors and asked. I think all he asked was, you know, people did they know that a Manchester victim lived in this street?
Yeah,
And
innocuous questions.
yeah, and I think one guy didn't even answer the door, and another guy just kind of said no and shut the door, and that was that. So it was very minimal, and that was like one trip.
Mm.
So but these reporters knocked on all the doors and they wanted all the details of Richard's dead parents, and
That's a
Work it
lot.
out for yourself. And that again, of course, when we get this reaction from people, oh, he shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have hassled these people because they were bereaved or they were victims of this horrible event. But the point about this is that they were portrayed as victims,
Indeed.
and the evidence is, and I've had conversations with somebody quite close to me who can't, they know somebody, or they know somebody that knows somebody that was allegedly killed in this event. And when you get that sort of level that somebody is allegedly killed and the story comes out in the press, or somebody has, their legs blown off or
Mm.
something, you know, people immediately have an emotional reaction to that. It's called emotional anchoring.
Yes,
And once they have that emotional anchoring and have been subjected to it, they can their objectivity then is almost neutralized,
indeed.
they will not accept that somebody who says they've got their legs blown off and shows that they have no legs,
Mm.
they couldn't accept that that person could be lying about how their legs were blown
How
off,
how it happens, yeah.
when they were blown off, you know. And indeed, that's what Richard was doing a lot of investigation into.